Welcome to the Ellis podcast.
All right, recording this on a Wednesday late afternoon. I'm excited on my way to AEW Dynamite. So wanted to get a podcast in before then, though. We're probably going to get this up and running later tonight. It might be first thing tomorrow morning. But Murph and I talk about college football. We talk about the NFL. We go into a lot of depth on some of the coaching situations in college football and the impact on teams, players. We also talk about the playoff and then get into a lot of NFL stuff. So excited to bring it to you, and I hope you enjoy it. And I can't wait to let everybody know how Dynamite goes tonight. So hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, everybody. It's Jamie and Kevin back at it for another week. Kevin, you recovered from Thanksgiving?
Yeah. I put on about 10 pounds. That's usually my average this holiday season, and pretty much did everything the way I normally do.
It was, I'll be honest, it was an unbelievable, I don't know if I've ever watched so much football because
I watched a lot too.
between the NFL and then all the college stuff. I mean, again, we talked about it last week, but this playoff and the scenarios that come up and what happens and how it impacts things, it's just, these weeks are really meaningful.
Well, you have to wonder if that is the reason behind it, because I have to tell you, I felt like I watched more football this time than ever. And I was interested. Like, I was invested in what I was watching. It was entertaining.
You know, it was funny. It was even some of the non-power conferences that I was watching because, you know, there are a certain number of those conferences that are going to get into the playoff just because there's 5 conference champions that are going to happen. So, you know, I talked last time about James Madison and my crush on James Madison, but like, it's just fun. It brings you into all levels of football. And I think that's a big win. Like, we as fans, we're going to get into the coaching stuff here in a little bit, but as fans, it's hard not to say that this playoff hasn't been a really good thing for us as fans.
Yeah, it has been. And even in the frustration of it not being perfect, it is still conversation. Like we said, last week, I couldn't go anywhere where it wasn't a conversation.
Yeah.
I'm on a bunch of different threads, text threads with groups, fantasy football group, my coaching group from high school, just friends in general, that this is a topic, man. This is a big topic. And come Sunday, we're going to have our answers.
Yeah, that is right. Boy, I'll tell you, I do think, Kevin, when I looked at the playoff and the seedings last night, the committee made a couple mistakes in my mind. And I want to tell you where I think they made mistakes. And you tell me if I'm wrong here.
Well, here, first of all, is anybody wrong, right? I mean, it's imperfect.
I think the committee's wrong.
Okay.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but I have 2 beefs with the committee, and here's my first one. You take a Texas A&M team that busted their butt, won every game, and they have a game against number 17 Texas, and they lose that game. Number 17 Texas, who was preseason number 1, and I understand it wasn't the year that everybody thought Texas would have, but to penalize them by taking them from the number 3 spot in the committee poll all the way down to number 7, I feel like that's a little bit of harsh treatment. And I say that because, look, if you're in that number 6 seed, you're gonna play one of the 2 conference winners out of conferences that might not be that strong. In fact, right now, number 6 is lined up to play number 11 Virginia. I think the committee purposefully moved them into the number 7 spot so they would get a better game against the number 10 team, who right now is Notre Dame, and that would be a classic rematch. But are they doing any favors to Texas A&M there? I just felt like that was a little bit too far of a drop.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Texas A&M fan, you did not you got beat pretty good. But you got beat by a team that, well, like you said, preseason was right there. So I don't think there's anything. And by the way, that's a game that has a lot of juice, right? That's Texas. That's Texas football. It's in-state rivalry. It's bragging rights. It's a lot of lot of things that go into it. So yeah, I would give, how do I want to say this? I would give room, space, a break to a Texas A&M in that with that situation. So, but did they do it on purpose? Are they trying to set up the game?
Yeah. So that gets me into my second conspiracy theory with the committee, and that is you had Alabama beat a very average Auburn team, and it was a good game. It was a close game. Meanwhile, you have Notre Dame go out and beat Stanford handily. And granted, Stanford is not a good team, right? But they go out to the West Coast, and you know it's hard going all the way out to the West Coast.
It's the West Coast, and it's a different time, and yeah.
So Notre Dame wins 49-20. Alabama barely beats Auburn 27-20. My conspiracy is the committee wanted to make sure Alabama was ahead of Notre Dame so that if Alabama loses to Georgia this week, the committee would say, you know what? We're going to keep Alabama right where they are, and we're going to keep Notre Dame at the 10 spot. And because we want both Alabama and Georgia in the playoff. And now Notre Dame, who again, Alabama leaped this week, Notre Dame's at pretty serious risk of missing out on the playoff if BYU beats Texas Tech.
Which they
BYU and
should.
Texas Tech would be in, and as of right now, Notre Dame would likely be out.
Don't you think BYU wins that game though now?
I don't know. I looked at the point spread. I think Texas Tech is favored by, I want to say it's a good amount, Kevin. I want to say it's 13.5. Yeah, 13.5. That was as of last night. So that's a pretty big spread. That said, I think Texas Tech realizes we're in the playoff no matter what. I mean, they're not gonna go from top 4 seed out of it. So I do think there is a likelihood that despite the 13.5 point spread, that BYU is going to win that game and sneak into the playoff.
You're just they're a tough team. Like, I think it's like scars from years past and probably some wagers that didn't fall my way, that BYU is one of those teams, man. They terrify me. And, I see a lot of good teams go out there and play in that atmosphere. And I had a buddy go out there this year to see the Utah game.
Okay.
And he said it was a pretty special atmosphere. And this guy's a stadium guy. He's been to all the big ones. And he was very impressed with it.
That's a pretty big rivalry too, I would think. Utah,
Yeah.
BYU. I mean, that's a big game. It will be interesting. The way I see it, and I always do my own picks every week and say, hey, this is where I think the rankings should shake out versus what the committee says. Again, outside of those two kind of arguments that I have, I actually think the committee did a pretty good job overall. You can talk about seeding and should one team be a little bit higher of a seed than another, maybe. But don't you think, Kevin, that the committee does look at the overall seeding and they say, boy, wouldn't it be great to have a rematch of Texas A&M, Notre Dame? Wouldn't it be great to have that winner then play Indiana so we potentially could get Notre Dame, Indiana again, an Indiana rivalry, not a rivalry, but an in-state, like that would bring a lot to that game.
Mm-hmm.
I have to think that the committee thinks about those things.
Well, I think you have to say they do, because part of the complaints last year was the fact that Penn State had the route that they had.
Yeah.
That SMU game at Happy Valley in the cold weather became laughable pretty early. And I don't think sponsors like losing their spectators, their fans, the people watching by halftime. And if you remember, those first couple games of the playoffs were very lackluster in entertainment. I mean, it just wasn't there.
Even that second round game, Penn State, Boise State, wasn't really a game. But
it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But I will say again, Kevin, I do think that the playoff, the 12 teams, we waited too long for this. It's been really fun. It's been really great.
And I'm a believer in the 16.
Well, and I agree with you. I mean, I have to think that's where it's going because that's how the money flows. And if the money flows that way, college football is going to make sure that happens. The NCAA is going to make sure that happens. And that kind of turns the subject a little bit towards some of the ugliness of what's going on right now. Lane Kiffin, right? We all know what happened there. He picks up and says, I'm leaving. I'm going to LSU. I've taken this Ole Miss team to a one-loss season. Ole Miss is squarely in the playoff, and now they're coachless. And just, I'd love your perspective on that from a player. And just, if that happened to you in your playing days, what would that do to you?
Well, I don't profess to be on that type of level, but I mean, gosh, you're talking about Division I kids that devote quite a bit of their life to their trade, and it is a trade. That's the bottom line. Probably it is a business more so now than ever. But you have a guy sit in your locker room and talk to you and ask for you to give him everything you have today at practice on Wednesday, right? Body's a little beat up, you're tired, argument with your girlfriend, you know, trouble at home. It doesn't matter.
Well, I was going to say that's very true, right? I mean, this becomes a second family. And in some cases for kids, it really is their first family.
And it's like somebody's walking out on them. And I think it's got to be tough. And you and I, before we started recording, we're chatting. And I think you brought up a really good point about the excitement in Ole Miss. So I always look at head coaches as basically writing a position paper. So, Sunday they meet for a big game on Saturday. Sunday they meet and it feels like you're going to be playing the Bears from back in the day or something. The Patriots and Tom Brady's the quarterback. They're going to sell to you how great this team is. And everything within a locker room is about buy-in. And so the best coaches get that buy-in early and they build you up. They write their position paper that college A that we play on Saturday is the best opponent we've seen all year. And this is why. And if you watch the film on this guy and you see this kid, I think this guy's underrated and that's a better lineman than I think he's getting credit for. And then they keep building you up and then they're going to tell you why you're going to win because they start putting in the game plan and then they start picking them apart and they start saying, well, this is where we're going to attack them and this is what we're going to do. And these kids believe in these guys and they have a body of work to go with. Look at Ole Miss's season.
Yeah. Yeah.
From last spring, coming out of that Penn State win, Ole Miss felt like they should have been somewhere else. And that was probably a theme, whether advertised or not, like what our goals are for next year, because we have what we need. And then your coach leaves.
It is funny, Kevin. Like I've got friends that played different levels of football, including yourself. There's somebody I know that I work with that played, he was on the offensive line at IU back in the mid-90s. And I can see it in you and those that have played football, and you can see the impact that team environment has carried with you throughout your lives as you've you're married and you have kids, and just it is, you can almost tell who those athletes are. And again, it does, I think, go back to coaching, what the coaching impact has been on those folks. And, when Lane Kiffin leaves, and I understand that it's also, and people might not like that I say this, it's probably also hard for Lane Kiffin, who has been around a lot of places. LSU is, I don't want to say it's the dream job, but it is up there on the list. I mean, you get to Baton Rouge, those kids and those families around that area live and breathe that football. He has a chance to make a deeper mark than he would have at Ole Miss. It's just true. Ole Miss does not have the history. I don't think, you may disagree, but I don't feel they have the history that an LSU does or an Alabama would or anything like that.
I just think it's hard because you're going to go to LSU now and you're going to ask these kids to believe you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you could call 85 kids to 100 kids in Ole Miss right now in Oxford that may argue with whether you should believe him or not. They're feeling something different.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, just going back to the coaches thing, that interim coach pulls those guys in and It's us against the world.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted you, but I want you.
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
Nobody thinks you're good enough, but I think you're good enough. The people of Oxford think you're good enough. Our fans nationwide think you're good enough. And trust me, that is going to be a galvanized, tight unit that goes into the playoffs. And they should go in, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them make some noise. It's there.
Yeah. I watched a little bit. I told you this a little bit earlier. Watched a little bit of the Ole Miss basketball game last night, and I don't know if it was before the game or at halftime. I saw the clip where the players were at center court, and the football players were at center court, and the interim coach, or maybe it was some of the assistant coaches, basically got up and said, "Hey, we're not giving up on this team. We're taking this team to the next level." And got everybody fired up. The players were fired up, and I felt good for the kids. I felt good for those coaches that were out there. You said an interesting point, which was, what do you believe? Like when a coach comes out and says, "Hey, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to pour into you. I'm going to get to know you," and all of that. And it's funny, like I look at a Brian Kelly, who not too long ago said that to LSU and the fans at LSU and the kids at LSU, and then that got a little bumpy. I'll tell you, Lane Kiffin has to win now. And if he doesn't win, what's his next step? So there is pressure on Lane Kiffin from day one to get LSU to what an Alabama was or what a Georgia is today. And maybe those are high bars. I'm saying that bar too high, but it has to be better than what LSU has been over the last couple of years.
And you always want to go into a situation like that. LSU is an extremely frustrated fan base right now.
Yeah.
What does it take for them to be happy? It takes a true sign of life, because Brian Kelly just took both hands and squeezed the life out of that program.
Yeah.
He did. And he's a bad example, because when I see Brian Kelly leave, I just think he's gone. I didn't like Brian Kelly personally. I didn't like Brian Kelly at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
I saw him berate a coach on Thursday night TV that was just unnecessary, and it just showed the kind of person he was, and I haven't seen anything to change that. When was he at Cincinnati? Late 90s, early 90s, mid 90s or something?
That's right.
And so I'll always remember that. And he's been, to me, he's been that kind of, I mean, a bad word, a jerk, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could come up with something better, but he just seems like an abrasive personality and sort of just an overall jerk. Lane Kiffin does it. To me, Lane Kiffin carries himself a certain way. His social media presence does a lot for him. He lets people inside to see him a little bit more. But with all of that said, you still have a locker room of kids you left. You didn't even say goodbye to him on Sunday. I'm sure he was told not to communicate with him.
Oh, I'm sure. It would have been interesting to be a fly on the wall of those internal meetings. And
he took very much the high road with not defending the AD, but saying he understood the AD's situation. The AD had a very interesting word. He goes, "I got to live here. You don't anymore."
that's a really good point. That is a really
"This is
good
my
point.
hometown. You're leaving."
Well, he wasn't the only one that made rumbles this week. John Sumrall, also at Tulane, is jumping ship. Now, Sumrall is in a different situation where he is going to coach the Tulane team through the postseason, assuming they get to the postseason if they win their conference championship, which is a whole different situation, right? I mean, I don't know what the kids think about that, especially a Tulane school that might have more kids that were not those 5-star athletes, right? That are coming and that's got to be hard for them as well.
I think it is, Jamie, but I think if you're going to be true to yourself, and you were at Tulane and you knew you were building something, you knew it was going the right direction. You knew more than likely that guy wasn't going to be there. And that's where I sort of say that's an excused absence, right? That he's allowed to do that.
Do you think the kids realize that? Do you think the kids go there realizing this is not going to be my football coach in 3 years, 4 years?
Well, Once he started turning that around, I bet they did. I mean, think about the job he did. And there's something to be said about that. And I think Lane Kiffin was leaning towards it. And I've always said this too, leave someplace better than you found it. He definitely is. Tulane is in great hands. That's a great job for an energetic coach that wants to recruit and make 3 stars, 5 stars, right?
Yeah.
That's a different job. That's a different type of coaching job. Summerall, he's ready to move on. So what does the next guy look like? Maybe he comes from a Division II school. Maybe he comes from, a 1AA type setting. But, it's left in better hands.
Foundation has been built.
And I don't know that you're going to see, other than the top tier players at a Tulane, leave.
Yeah,
They are built something. They got something there.
Yeah. And with Summerall going to Florida, they're going to have their own recruiting classes that are going to be 4 and 5 star, provided they stay with Summerall going there. And I'm sure many of them will. Some of them might not.
I think a good percentage of them are going to. Keep in mind who the Tulane kids are. They've been passed up by the schools they wanted to be at because they weren't a 4 or 5 star kid. So I think that's like a really exciting. I think Florida should be excited. I think they're getting a winner.
Yeah.
I think they're getting a guy who has put his time in and built something. And I think Tulane should applaud him on the way out and wish him the very best. And let's pick a winner for the next one. You and I talked about Tulane last week.
Yeah.
And you and I were very high on their program. I like the stadium that they built a few years back. They got a nice thing going down there.
I go back to, again, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe at this point, but Caleb Williams and USC in the bowl game, they beat them. And that was a huge moment for that program.
That was a put them on the map moment, right?
That's right. That's right. So I do wish them well with their conference championship, because it does. I mean, that is a conference where it is, if you lose, you are not getting in the playoff. The winner of that conference is going to go to the playoff. They play North Texas. North Texas is a good team. I followed them a little bit throughout the year. They're a good team. So honestly, Friday night and Saturday, it's going to be fun football. One other thing that I want to say, going back to the playoff, I do think it's really interesting that Virginia has that playoff spot right now as the top ranked conference champion, and they play Duke. And if Duke somehow upsets Virginia, Duke is not going to represent the ACC as the highest ranked conference champion. They just don't have the resume. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. And so I think if Duke wins that game, I think that loss likely opens up a spot for James Madison, because James Madison at least is on the committee's radar now. They're ranked in the top 25, and I think they would be the next team up, provided they win their conference championship, if Duke does beat Virginia. And I don't know if you saw the point spread on that game. This shocked me. Virginia is getting 3.5 points against Duke.
Duke's not bad, man. Duke.
But do you think they would get the spot? Do you think if Duke wins that they would get? I feel like they would have to give it to a James Madison, who has one loss.
In that scenario, do you have Miami in already?
I do not have Miami getting in. I don't. The only way I think Miami gets in is if they leapfrog Notre Dame in a week when neither team plays.
Yeah.
I just don't see Miami getting in. I think the committee really wants them in, and I think they would be a really fun team in the playoff because they're good and they could knock off some teams.
Take care of your business.
Yeah. But I mean, do you see Miami getting in?
That was the topic. That was one of the big topics. And man, everybody had some really good opinions in it, because people, I think, are eyeballing Notre Dame's situation and Miami's situation as being very much the same. So here was the topic, and tell me what you think about it. If you were going to play a week 0 game and you are going to boast about the win, do you get to downgrade the loss because it's week 0?
Great question, and one I've thought about all the time. I mean,
let's talk about it, because they hike these games up, and they matter, man. It ends up mattering. And I mean, Texas was a victim of week 0.
Texas was. You know who else was? Alabama. Alabama got blown out by Florida State. So It's interesting because I think, again, this is one of my things against the committee. I think they are ignoring it when it comes to Alabama, but are they making it a big issue with Notre Dame losing in the first week to Texas A&M? Notre Dame has lost by a total of 4 points to 2 teams, one of them being Miami, who, granted, they had a couple of losses that they shouldn't have
They're
had.
still a very good team.
Still a very good team, and one to Texas A&M, who lost their first game last week. So, and I'm not just saying this because I have Notre Dame affiliations. Let me make that clear. I am not a Notre Dame fan. I'll make that clear. But I do feel like it's a little bit, this is what frustrates me a little bit with the committee, that they don't use what I'll call case law. They don't use what they've used in the past and apply it to the future, even in the same season.
It feels like, in regards to that week 0, week 1 games, it's like they use it to justify the point they want to make.
Right.
But there's always two sides to it. Like, do you downgrade somebody for that loss? Like Notre Dame's a prime example, so keep in mind what Notre Dame did the year before. Notre Dame beats Texas A&M and then loses to Northern Illinois.
Which was,
and then goes on to play in the big one.
Yeah. It's been interesting. They've been a fun team to watch. Here's how I boil it down, and you tell me if you think I'm crazy or not. I actually think Texas Tech beats BYU this week. And if they do, I think that settles a lot of the issues. Because at that point, I think everything falls into place. I think Alabama, even if they lose to Georgia, they can still be put in the playoff. I think Notre Dame would still be in the playoff. Well, so let's talk about that, Kevin. If Alabama loses,
you can tell on my face that the thought of Alabama getting in with 3 losses bothers me.
I understand. Let's say Alabama loses. I think the best hope for Alabama then would be they flip-flop with Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets the 9 seed and Alabama gets 10. Or do you say, I'm sorry, Alabama, you have 3 losses. Now we are going to put Miami in there.
Well, we seem to always give credit to victories. Should you get demoted, relegated for bad losses? Like Carson Beck threw 4 interceptions in that game. He looked horrible. I actually watched it. Carson Beck looked like he never really played football before. And like, why aren't we giving people, we seem to give credit for the wins, but we don't give people credit for the slip-ups. Keep in mind, you and I growing up in the 90s, that one loss killed you.
Yeah.
2 losses, God, you might as well pack it up.
Kevin,
you're going to the Holiday Bowl.
You're talking to a guy that lived through the 94-95 Penn State season when they had 0 losses and still didn't.
That was an atrocity. And you know what? That when this whole thing's over, this NFL season and stuff, I would love to have a week with you where we talk about that Penn State team and what happened to them and that entire scenario. We should have a blood pressure measurement for me, because that gets me worked up, because it goes deeper. And just to set the tone, it goes deeper because of the Nebraska, the Tom Osborne. Why did he look like somebody and
yes,
Joe Paterno didn't? And if you dig deep enough, so let's circle back. Let's make a note for that. And I think there'd be a lot of interest in that topic. But
well, I
thought you got me all worked up. You said 94, 95 Penn State, and I lost my train of thought.
Again, I do think if as long as Texas Tech takes care of their business, I think everything else falls into place. Again, we could argue the Alabama and should a 3-loss Alabama team make the playoff? Maybe that is the only argument that's on the board at that point. I think if Tulane would lose to North Texas, North Texas is in. They're not taking anybody's spot away from them. They're just taking that conference championship spot. I think if Duke beats Virginia, it throws a lot of things out there. Again, I think that spot then goes to James Madison as long as they win their conference championship. If somehow they lose their conference championship, which I don't think they will, they're a 20-plus point favorite. But if they lose, boy, that would be interesting, because now I just look down at the best teams from conferences that aren't represented, And I think you have to go to UNLV, who would play Boise State in the Mountain West Championship, and possibly a UNLV team getting in, unless at that point you say, no, you've got to give it to Duke then.
This whole thing is the ACC is a little bit of bizarro world.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And they should just play better football.
They should play better football, and they're going to change how they decide their conference champions going forward too. I think they've learned a lot and will change the process around.
Well, remember the Big Ten had that. They had the East and the West, and it's so unfair.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of conferences had the two divisions. I think only one conference now of the 9 that are out there have two divisions.
Yeah, you could see it lining up years in advance of who was going to get hot, who wasn't.
Now, I do think that the conference championship games are more meaningful perhaps today than they were in the past, because there could be meaning to it. Now, maybe not some of them, maybe not the Big Ten, right? The Big Ten, I think no matter who wins, I think Indiana and Ohio State end up in the top 4. I think they do, unless it's a blowout.
It would be a crime if they didn't. I mean, those are two good bodies of work. I mean, you're talking about 1 and 2.
Yeah. 1 and 2 with 0 losses. I mean, you're not going to, if Indiana loses, they're not going to put Oregon ahead of them after they beat Oregon pretty handily, by the way, at Oregon. So I can't see that happening. So I think they're both set. But I do think conference championships impact seeding and could impact, like we talked about, Alabama, Georgia, what happens there.
Devil's advocate to all of this?
Yeah, I want to hear it. That's my take, but yeah.
Alabama gets in, what does a conference championship mean? They lost, and they got in.
That's fair. However,
somebody brought that argument up, though, today.
Let's say BYU beats Texas Tech. They both get in, right? But it does impact Texas Tech from a seeding. They go from having a bye to having a first-round game and against BYU in. So I like it. My argument is I think it helps football. I understand your side of it, though, that, hey, in some of these cases, is it really that meaningful?
We keep talking about it. At the end of the day, we're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. So, they're winning.
Yeah.
The NCAA is winning.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but the fact that we have these arguments, these discussions, these debates, that's what they wanted.
Yeah. That's very true.
And thank God for the talking heads. If they didn't have this, what would they talk about? Nobody cares about the NBA right now.
Thank God for us. We get to talk about this. We get to bring so much enlightenment. It
gives us a reason to chat.
That's right. Well, what if we flip to the NFL? You want to flip to the NFL and talk a little bit of interesting stuff? All right.
Sure.
Give me a second here, Kevin, because I do want to pull up the games really quick. Are you okay on time? All right. I just want to have the point spreads in front of me. Okay. And I have the games. I think what we can do, Kevin, is let's talk a little bit about last week's games, and not all of them, but I'll just bring up some of them. And then I'll go back after we record and I'll do our wins and losses and just recap it. All right, Kevin, let's look at the week in the NFL. I'll tell you, first of all, going into Thursday's games, I thought the Thursday games were good, but boy, I think they were awesome. I think Thanksgiving, having 3 games is phenomenal. And I was excited going into them. A couple weeks ago, though, I looked at a Kansas City Dallas game and I was like, that's probably not a big one. Boy,
what did that change?
That changed real quick.
Yeah.
So let's start with the first game that day, though. Green Bay at Detroit. I think Green Bay is showing a little bit more of what they are now. And, Love passes for 4 touchdowns. Detroit is struggling more on defense. Yes, they have injured players, but they fought back. Yeah.
Still a very tough team, especially, at home. And that's a fast track there. And they have Gibbs. And so I think they are a different team at home than on the grass playing at Lambeau.
Yeah.
I always think about the same thing on Thanksgiving Day. Whoever wins that day, 3 games, you'll have 3 winners. That's like huge, right? That's like you get Friday off, you get Saturday off, you get Sunday off. That's a lot of rest time with a victory for that week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's big.
Two teams that don't get that break, though, are Dallas and Detroit because they play tomorrow. And that might be a loser leave town match, right? Because Dallas, all of a sudden, it's like, hey, they're fringy playoff and they're playing really well right now.
Well, you don't want to play Dallas right now.
No.
You can say you and I talked about the NFL being the team with the back against the wall and fighting out. Didn't work this week, right? You had KC, who we felt was a team that was fighting. But Cowboys, they're on the other side. They're doing nothing but feeling good. Their last 6 quarters of football, going back to that Eagles game, have been pretty damn impressive.
Well, and their record is at 6-5-1. So if they win, and I know I'm going back, I said we'd look at last week, but it's hard to look at last week and not think about this week. If they win tomorrow night against the Lions, they're 7-5-1. Their upcoming games are a Sunday night game against the Vikings at home. The next week is against the Chargers at home. Then they go to Washington, who's not playing their best football, and they finish the season at the Giants. There's some winnable games there.
Absolutely.
At a time when I'll now talk about another game from Friday, actually, at a time when the Eagles are falling apart. Kevin, what's going on with the Eagles?
I was at an Eagles party Friday to watch that game. I was with a group called the York Bird Gang. Let's just say they take their Eagles football very serious. And they were beside themselves. They were just at a loss. They think it's something in the locker room. They think it's more. They don't think it's injuries. They think it's a mental game for them. Very, very disgusted with the play calling.
Is there a chance that we see a quarterback move here at all? I mean, I can't believe I'm saying it, yet Jalen Hurts has not looked good.
I can tell you what I was hearing in that basement, and those guys wanted to change. Those guys wanted to change. You know what else they commented on more than anything?
What's that?
Is watching other teams in the NFL and the creativity on offense. They wonder why they can't be that creative with the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, and then the threat of Saquon Barkley in the backfield. And also you got a great tight end in Goddard. Like, how can't you make those pieces and parts work?
In a really good offensive line. And yet
they're banged up a little bit.
They are banged up, but they have the pieces, and they are one of the most boring offenses. I don't like watching Eagles games. They're just not fun to watch.
It was tough at times, and it was like flat.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was flat. And so A.J. Brown gets the ball more, but he's getting it in like 8-yard pops. Saquon didn't break more. He was getting 4 to 5 yards a touch, but he didn't have that 25-yarder. He didn't have that 45-yarder. He didn't break one to the house. So I think there's more questions than answers in Philly, and I don't think it's a really good time to be an Eagles fan.
They go to the Chargers. They're home against the Raiders. They're at the Commanders, and they're at the Bills in there. No, I'm sorry. They're at the Commanders. They're at the Bills, and then they're home against the Commanders. They have 2 games against Washington. Feels like a little softness in schedule with the Raiders, 2 Commanders games on the schedule. Chargers could be a little frisky, and the Bills, that'll be a tough matchup. But it feels like maybe they've done enough to at least punch their ticket to the playoffs. But it's not going in on fire.
Yeah, and that's right. It's almost like limping in.
Yeah. The Chiefs, how much in trouble are they? How much trouble are they in, I should say?
I think they're in a lot of trouble to fight and win that game against the Colts, and then to come against the Dallas Cowboys team that was hot. I think they have to be extremely concerned. Have they used all of their magic dust? You know what I mean? Is it gone?
They're at 6-6 right now. I think you have to at least probably have 10 wins in the AFC to be comfortable. They've got the Texans this week, and that's a NBC Sunday night game. That is not easy. The Texans have a very good defense. They have the Chargers. They're at the Titans, but then they have the Broncos before finishing up at the Raiders.
I wouldn't want to play the Broncos.
Nobody wants to play the Broncos. I don't know if I want to, but the Chargers have already beaten them. And I think this game on Sunday night is a make or break game for them.
Well, I definitely think the fear factor of playing KC is gone. I don't think it's there. And I mean, to their credit, in the NFL, they were the premier top dog for 4 years, 5 years in a row. I mean, it didn't translate into Super Bowls necessarily, but heck, like they had a heck of a run. I mean, pretty special time. Is it over? Could it be over? I think it is over.
Why is that? Is it aging players, not having the playmakers? Is it, I mean, I'll tell you what I think it is. I think Mahomes is still getting good numbers. If you look at his stats week in and week out, it's not that they're bad stats, but I feel like those throws that he used to make across his body, across the field, where he used to hit Kelsey down the sideline, 30 yards, he's just not making those throws right now. He's not making those completions.
And you know what else isn't happening? It used to just drive me nuts, but you would see like a Kansas City receiver is like more open than Denny's in the middle of the field, like just alone. And you're thinking, I mean, it's the NFL, guys. How is that guy alone? Sometimes it was Kelsey. Like, how do you lose Kelsey? And I just think it's all of the things you said, Jamie. And I think it's sort of all of those things coming together. I don't think it's Mahomes.
Yeah.
I've seen more drop balls this year by Kansas City. I've seen some drop balls that are uncharacteristic.
Yeah. The other thing is, prior to playing the Colts, Kansas City, they were 0-5 in one-score games. They beat the Colts in a one-score game, but and then the Cowboys game, that was a one-score. Was that a one-score final?
Oh, so I thought
they lost by 3. So they're 1-6 in one-score games. Those are games they used to win. And because Mahomes, I'm not saying that he's been downgraded as a quarterback. He's still very effective, but the plays that he used to make under pressure and the receivers that would help him make those plays, that's just not happening right now.
Yeah, it isn't. And I think it is a combination of everything. To stay on top as long as they were, I'm talking like it's over, but for this year it's over. And I think you're going to see some dismantling. I think you're going to see some pieces leave.
Yeah.
That team. I mean, if you follow the Belichick path, you're trading Kelsey next year.
Yeah.
He's not the same player. Get something for him. Get some value for him. You're going to see some of that nucleus start to part.
Unless he might retire. I mean, who knows?
He could.
Were you surprised that Carolina beat the Rams? And I ask you that question not as a trick question. Some may say, look, the Rams are the best team in football. How could they lose? But you could kind of see Carolina coming on here a little bit lately.
Well, it was a perfect storm, right? West Coast team coming to the East Coast. We had a little bit of weather. They don't have weather where they play. You know what I mean? You had a team that you should have put away early. If you wanted to win that game, you let them creep around. And how big of a win was that for Carolina?
I was excited for them. I mean,
So was I.
Yeah, it was a great win. Look, I'm not saying that this is a season win that's going to get them in the playoffs or anything like that. But you know what? If you're a Carolina fan, you see some things happening this year. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel better about the future. And again, I thought going into that game, the Rams have been playing as one of the best teams in football. And you're right. It was a perfect storm. You could kind of see it coming. It's interesting.
You could see it coming. You felt it was coming.
Well, I just look back at our picks from last week and seeing which one of us might have picked that game. We each went with the over under. So I went over, you went under. And I think I'm pretty sure I hit that one.
I think that Carolina game is like, you could do a case study on it, right? You had the Rams who were just rolling. What did Stafford throw for? How many touchdowns did he throw for like the previous week? Was it 4 or something?
Yeah. I mean, he's having an MVP season.
100%. He throws his first pick in what, 10 games or something
Yeah.
off a batted ball. And
Yeah,
then the next one was a pick six.
he
And they happened within 5 minutes of each other, those 2 interceptions. He hadn't had one for what, 10 games? And
he
he had
had
two.
not had an interception since September 21st.
Yeah.
And if I recall, Kevin, that might have been, I was thinking that was the last play of the game when the Eagles ran that back for a touchdown, but I think that was a blocked field goal, actually. That was that game from back on September 21st. But yeah, if you look at his numbers prior to that game, the 23rd against the Buccaneers, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The week before that against the Seahawks, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The previous 3 weeks before that, he had 4, 4, and 5 touchdowns with no interceptions. I mean, this guy.
I saw, yeah, they're on fire. They were on fire. I saw something really funny though at the end of that game. They made a really, really great play call to ice it. It was just over 2 minutes left. They sent a receiver in a little sit down in the middle of the field and they threw it. It was an easy pass. It was an easy read, easy catch. He hits the ground. The game's over. It's 2 minutes and they have 4 downs. So, and they pan over to Stafford. And it was just so funny because Stafford was like, he wasn't laughing, but one of the assistant coaches you could see was like looking up at the scoreboard and he was just laughing, shaking his head like, I don't think the Rams take anything from this. The Rams aren't in trouble.
No. In fact, it might be healthy for him. You don't want to go in this long streak going into the playoffs without a loss, and now you have your first real challenge, and I think it's a healthy loss. They're going to.
You and I were talking about in the NFL. Sometimes you have acceptable losses.
Yeah.
Traveling across the country on Thanksgiving week and playing a Carolina team in the rain. Yeah, that's probably a loss that you can say, guys, we won't even watch the film on this. Let's just start focusing on next week.
One loss that wasn't acceptable last week was the Ravens hosting Cincinnati. I get that Joe Burrow's back. I understand that. Regardless, Baltimore was a 7-point favorite. I don't think this team's making the playoffs. You look at their schedule, they don't have an easy road ahead. They've got the Steelers this week, and we can talk about the Steelers challenges all we want. They've got their own challenges, but anytime the Steelers-Ravens play, it's going to be a good game. Then they're back to the Bengals, who they just lost to. They've got the Patriots. They're at the Packers, and then they're at the Steelers to finish the year. How is this team going to win enough games to make the playoffs? Lamar, if you look at his numbers, they're not the same. His passer rating for the game, I think, was 65. Or in the 65 area. They're just not clicking. They're not running the ball as effectively as they used to. I look at Zay Flowers, their receiver. Lamar and him used to connect on things. They're just not connecting anymore. I don't know. Is it time to look at a change at coach? I'm not saying today, but in the off season, it just feels like we're in a transitional period for the Ravens.
Yeah, we talked about it with the Chiefs. They capitalized on their success and the team they had. Are the Ravens going to look back and say, we missed some opportunities? I mean, to not win a playoff game with that group is a head scratcher, right? How does that happen?
Yeah.
And is it time for a change? Well, if you want to move forward, maybe it is. Maybe you got to make a tough decision.
You went from
By the way, you know the owner.
Yes.
Better than most, and that's a man that isn't afraid to make a tough decision.
He's not afraid to make a tough decision. I think he's very loyal, and that's the one thing. He's very loyal person. But you're right. I mean, they won a Super Bowl with Flacco, and since Lamar's been the starting quarterback, have they even really made a run? It feels like there's been a lot of early playoff exits that are unexpected.
It always felt to me like defensive coordinators sort of let Lamar get his. Like they were okay with it. And then as soon as the playoffs come, all of a sudden the windows close and the holes that he used to find to keep things alive aren't there. It's almost like defensive coordinators get a feel for him, like in conference. And then they're sort of like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do the next time I play him. And it seems to have worked, right? Because his playoff performances, they're not that great.
They're not.
They're not flashy. They're nothing like his regular season performances, and I think that goes back to the defensive coordinators. I think they sort of have a book on him. I think they know what they want to do with him.
Yeah. I remember, boy, it was probably 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe they had a playoff loss to Tennessee at home, which was a devastating playoff loss. Let's see, 22, they lost to the Bengals in the wild card round. 23, they won the divisional round against the Texans, but then lost to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. Not sure if you remember that game, but that was one that the Ravens expected to win. Lost to the Bills in 24. Again, I think that Titans game may have been 21 where the Titans took them down in the playoffs. But yeah, I would expect some offseason moves with that organization. I'm not saying it's just the head coach either. Is it players? Is it reassessing the makeup of their team? I think we are going to see some changes there.
Well, you look at successful companies every day make changes at the CEO level. It's about direction. It's about vision. And Harbaugh's been at it a long time, and he is essentially a CEO of an organization. And is it flat? Is the message flat? Is he not changing with the times? Does he not have the vision for what the next 3 years needs to be for an organization to get to the big dance, the big game? Steelers, you're probably getting ready to talk about them, right? The Steelers are same boat. And they're, once again, you have an ownership that's very loyal, but is it time? Is it time for somebody else to put a different vision, a different course, a different roadmap in front of those organizations?
It's funny, the Steelers, Kevin, think about this. In our lifetime, they've had 3 head coaches.
Yeah.
3 head coaches in our lifetime. I mean,
We were born into one of them.
yeah, that's incredible when you look at some of these organizations that change every couple of years. I mean, my stupid team has made more head coaching changes in the last 10 years than they have in our whole lifetime. I say, well, let me go back to the Steelers first. That was a really disappointing loss to the Bills. Knowing what the Bills had going on from a health standpoint, I expected the Steelers to just honestly dominate that game. It was the other way around. I mean, Buffalo came to play.
Well, and Pittsburgh looked like they didn't.
Yeah. And that's not good from Mike Tomlin team. Like, that does go back to what you said. Is that where you do have to assess? They're not hearing the coach. It's might be time for a change.
Well, and then you have a pretty and the Ravens do too. You have a pretty ravenous fan base.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Those are people who work hard, and it's not cheap to go to an NFL game. I mean, if you're in Pittsburgh, getting those season tickets is a commitment that is felt all year long. You prepare for that moment when the season tickets come out. And so they deserve, to be heard. And if those fans are saying it, maybe it's time.
Yeah. Couple other things from last week. Number one, boy, New England has something with Drake May. And every week that I say this is the week they're going to lose. Even this past week, I'm like, the Giants. That's kind of a trap game, right? Giants going to New England on a Monday night felt like a trap game. Drake May looked phenomenal. That's a good team with a good coach.
I find them very interesting, right? I think if they're a stock you're buying, right?
Yeah.
I think you're buying it because they're buying in, right?
Yeah.
You talk about teams you don't want to play. I don't want to play New England right now.
I do think it might help them. They have a little bit of a cushion now. We talked about good losses sometimes. Maybe they need to have a good loss in there sometime soon, sometime before the playoffs start. I know that sounds strange, but you think back to like that New England team that was undefeated going into the playoffs and just looked exhausted, and they make it to the Super Bowl, but they don't get the job finished. Sometimes losses, as we said before, are good.
I went to see New England that year because I was convinced they were going to have an undefeated season.
Oh,
And I literally froze my butt off with some buddies on a Monday night in Baltimore to get this. When I say froze, I mean, it was cold. I've been to some cold games. It was top 3 for me. And they did it. They pulled it out. But like you said, it didn't end the way we thought it would. Yeah, I always wonder about that, and that was a time that I wondered that about the Patriots. All this talk, it eventually becomes a distraction. The undefeated season. I don't want an undefeated season. I want a Super Bowl ring.
That's right.
Like, it'd be nice to have an undefeated season. I want to talk about it every week and have the fear of losing put into me.
You also want to celebrate with those 72 Dolphins, right? You want to drink the champagne and
Pop
celebrate.
it, pop it, pop them bottles.
I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the AFC South and the Colts
Can I
doing
do one thing quick?
Yes, yes.
The one thing I think we should talk about, which is lost in everything, especially where I live, is the Bears.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to talk about a loss that looked on paper like it was just going to happen? Friday after Thanksgiving on the road, 3:30 kickoff in Philly. And the Bears find a way to win. When do you start looking at them differently? When do you start asking yourself, like, is this not smoke and mirrors anymore? Are we just missing it? Are they good?
Well, and it wasn't just finding a way to win. They flat out dominated. I mean, their run game was exceptional. And Caleb Williams is starting to get a little of that mojo. He's starting to get a little confidence. I am with you 100%. Every week I look at the Bears and I'm like, yeah, that's they'll lose. They're finally meeting their match and so forth.
This is the week it happens.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
the way they played against Philly, and I don't know if that is Philly on the downslide or if it's the Bears moving up. It's probably a combination in there, but the Bears look like a good football team right now.
If you're the Bears, you totally look at it. You don't, you're not worried about your opponent, like what the Eagles are going through. That was a big win for the Bears. And like you said, I thought it was like a judgment day. I thought it was like a day of reckoning for them where they learn what a good team looks like.
Yeah.
And I thought the Eagles were going to come in hungry because of what happened before.
I thought the exact same thing. I think everybody thought that. So the Bears are at the Packers this weekend, which is a phenomenal game. Very excited. Like this week's slate of games, and we're going to go over it in a second. This week's slate of games is very good. It might be the best NFL week of the season. But they're at the Packers. Then they're home against the Browns. The Packers visit the Bears. The Bears go to the 49ers, and then they finish the year with the Lions at home. There's some really good games in there. I mean, 2 against Green Bay and Detroit. Who knows what Detroit will be like at that time, but they'll have to show their mettle here. And can they go into a Lambeau Field when it's cold?
If they run that gauntlet and they finish at 75% for the remaining games, Ben Johnson is going to be looked at a lot differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And Ben Johnson, look, he was a guy a lot of teams fell in love with what he did in Detroit. You wonder how much of their kind of stumbles are about Ben Johnson leaving. But but I'll tell you, he's getting a lot out of that team. And in fairness, they've built that team over a number of years. This is a team that has a lot of good pieces. They might be better than we think, than we give them credit for.
We're going to know.
Yeah.
We'll know in the next few weeks. Playing the Packers twice is going to be pretty, that'll be the tail of the tape, probably. How they do in those 2 games.
I would agree with that. Just wanted to talk about the AFC South for a second. My Colts have very nicely, maybe it's the holiday season, I don't know, but they're like, hey, let's start letting some of these other teams in the playoff picture. I was at the game on Sunday, really thought they were going to beat a good defensive Houston team, but I'll tell you, Daniel Jones looks a lot different right now. He has this fracture in his leg, and he is not mobile at all. They bull rushed him, and we got beat on the offensive line. He could not scramble, and I'm really worried about it. We go to Jacksonville this week. Jacksonville's leading the division.
Another team.
Yeah. Do you know the Colts?
Buying stock, I'd be buying stock.
The Colts have not won in Jacksonville since 2014. It's incredible.
I would never ever thought that.
Yeah, they've got this monkey on their back. So again, I think between Houston, Indy, and Jacksonville, honestly, I really like the way Houston looks right now. Their defense is solid.
I think all 3 teams are gonna be dangerous, like, because 'cause they'll have a first round game,
Yeah,
and they're gonna be dangerous.
yeah.
Any one of those 3, I wouldn't have any parts of. It looked like the Colts were gonna run away with it.
No, I started believing in it, and I shouldn't have. It was silly me. Why do I get these, I was fan. Yeah, I don't lead the best life, Kevin. I've got some issues, and it's all because of my sports teams, and now we can add Penn State to it, but no, that's gonna be an interesting division. Why don't we take a look at this week's games? Because again, I think the slate is really good this week, and I actually thought other than the Thursday games last week that, the rest of the week was not that great, not that exciting. Tomorrow night, Cowboys at Lions, we talked about it. I feel like this is a game where the winner is really still in it, but the loser, I don't know. It's gonna be hard to make the playoffs, and you have 2 teams in opposite directions. The Lions headed down, the Cowboys with a little bit of a surge right now.
I'm going Cowboys.
Yeah, I want the Cowboys to win, and I can't believe I'm saying that, because I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I kinda like this Cowboys team. They're fun to watch.
It was fun on Thursday, right?
Yeah.
And, I could get in trouble. My wife's a diehard Eagles fan, but that comeback was, you know, with the Eagles just laying it on them. I mean, that second half was impressive. And to see them carry it on to the next week was some validation, like we talked about. There's some stuff there.
Yeah. As much as I want the Cowboys, though, I do think Detroit being at home, they have something to prove, and I think they'll do it. They're still a good team. They've got some issues, but
They bothered me. They bothered me on Thursday. And I'm a Packers fan. Like I was happy with it, but I don't know. I'm not as high on Detroit as I was, and this has been coming for 3 weeks now.
if I look ahead at some of the other games, and I'm gonna skip over games like the Titans at Browns because I don't I don't think we wanna spend much time on a game like that. But looking at some of the other exciting games this week, Colts at Jaguars, we talked about it. Again, feels like 2 teams moving in opposite directions. If you're the Colts, this feels like a must win. Actually, if you're either team, it feels like a must win.
Yeah. But that Daniel Jones, running's a big part of his game. It's not necessarily planned runs, but it's him getting out of a mess, getting out of a problem. And if he doesn't have the confidence to get out of that pocket safely, is he hearing steps? Is he going to be apt to throw the ball early, to release the ball early? What's going on in his head when he doesn't have the wheels the way he wants them to get out of a mess or a jam?
Is he gonna start forcing passes, which I saw a little bit of that on Sunday. Not that he had a terrible game. He didn't throw an interception, but it did feel like there were some forced passes there. And let's see what Sunday brings. I find it interesting that Indy's a 1.5 point favorite at Jacksonville. Surprises me. I know Jacksonville's a little bit banged up after last weekend, but a little bit surprised that Indy's the road favorite. We have another game that we talked about, Pittsburgh at Baltimore. Baltimore's a 6 point favorite at home. That kind of surprises me, but then again, after I saw the Steelers last week, maybe it shouldn't surprise me.
I don't know. That's a jump ball. 6.5, I don't care. It's a jump ball with those 2 teams. If if Aaron Rodgers' little pep talk, little jab about people not showing up to meetings and
But that was a
you
pep
know,
talk, Kevin? That was a pep talk?
I think it was, hey, Bosa laid into him. Like sometimes veterans get a pass. Bosa sort of rammed his face into that turf. And we all know, with that helmet, he doesn't really wear it that tight. It's always like half
Yeah.
off the chin strap. Sometimes is even buckled. Like he got messed up. You look at his face after that, and I was surprised by that that Bosa sort of followed through with that tackle a little more aggressively than a veteran on a veteran would.
So, Kevin, I think that the Steelers, Tomlin teams seem to respond well after adversity. I've seen that over the years. I remember one game they lost, and they had a press conference afterwards, and he looked at the camera. He's like, "We won't respond like that again. I promise you, we won't respond like that again." I could see Tomlin doing something like that. Boy, if I'm betting that game, I think I take the Steelers plus the 6 points. I just don't see Baltimore again. I'm not seeing Lamar Jackson play at the level that he has in the past.
Would you be surprised Steelers win outright?
No, no, not at
Would you
all.
be surprised if the Ravens blew them out?
No,
Like, you just wouldn't be. I
that
don't know what we're gonna see.
that is very fair. All right, what about Chicago at Green Bay, Kevin? How do you see that? Green Bay's a 6.5-point favorite at home, not giving the respect to the Bears.
Seems like a lot of points to me, but I also expect the Packers to handle them. If they don't, I'm a Bears believer. Like, if the Bears pull out a win or have a really solid showing, it's going to speak volumes to where they are and what Ben Johnson has them doing. If the Packers go in and win by 10 or something, and it's sort of always in control 14 and it's just always in the back pocket, then we go back to thinking the Bears are who they were, who we thought they were. Uh,
The Bears are who we thought they were.
but I expect the Packers to win.
Yeah, it's a huge game on a lot of fronts. If the Bears win that game, they're 10-3, and as it stands right now, they're
Say
the
that
number 1 seed in the NFC.
the Bears are 10-3. Say that again.
10-3, incredible. So a huge game. If Green Bay wins, they're 9-3-1. All of a sudden, they're right up there with the Rams and Bears. So again, really good game this weekend to watch. The other one that I have on my radar is Houston at Kansas City. Again, we talked about this. How does Kansas City respond? They're at home. It's a Sunday night game. Feel pretty good about that. Houston's defense is for real, though.
Mm-hmm. They're for real, and CJ, that young man's playing good football right now, right? Like, he's not hurting them. He's putting them in positions to win, and that defense is responding. That's like a winning formula in the NFL, right? Don't turn it over. Keep the chains moving. Good defense. Stop the offense. Punt. Another long drive. Stop the defense gets a stop. They punt again. Another long drive. And then the possession arrow leans so heavy to Houston. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that's another sort of telltale game where we're going to know a lot more after that.
I was trying to look at when Stroud went out he was injured, and I think it was the Broncos game a
Was he
couple of weeks
concussed?
ago. Davis Mills played the Broncos game, but here's what's interesting. When Stroud was hurt, the Texans went 3-1 without him, and then they beat the Colts this week. So after starting 0-3, they're on a nice little run here. They're, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7-2 after an 0-3 start with wins against the Colts in Indy, the Bills, the Jaguars, a division winner, the 49ers, not a bad team in the NFC. They've got some nice wins.
Yeah, that's a heck of a resume.
So huge game for Kansas City, maybe even more meaningful for Kansas City than it is Houston, just given the dynamic of the AFC South and a lot of those teams play each other, but feels like a must win for Kansas City.
I think it is.
The other game I wanted to talk about briefly, and I said earlier that they were on bye. They're not on bye. The Eagles are not on bye. They've already been on their bye week. It's just they have a Monday night game, so I was looking at the date incorrectly. They're traveling across the country to go to play the Chargers. Boy, that'll be an interesting game Monday night to see how they respond.
Yeah, it's there's a lot on the line there. I mean, if they don't perform, well, first of all, the city could burn. There could be violence. property is going to get destroyed. Heck, they threw eggs at the offensive coordinator's house after Friday night's game.
I read that.
So let's just hope they play well.
Yeah, usually they're putting grease on the poles and stuff in the street to protect against champions. This might be to protect against burning down the city.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm very interested to watch that game on Monday. Again, not necessarily. It's not a game that like intrigues me. Again, the Eagles are one of my least favorite teams to watch, but they're becoming more fun to watch just because I like to see complete dysfunction from our NFL champions.
You should live around here after this recent run of success. I mean, Eagles fans, they're beside themselves. That group on Friday when that game was over, it was disbelief. There were a lot of calls. There were a lot of calls for the backup quarterback who has a following, by the way. Every backup quarterback,
Yeah.
but they like that guy. And then Soriano's in a lot of trouble. Like, they're getting sick of his act.
Yeah.
So something's got to change.
It is incredible though when you take a step back and you say Sirianni's taken him to 2 Super Bowls. He's won 1 Super Bowl, and they sit here. Yes, they've lost 2 in a row, but my goodness, they started off the year 8-2, 2 losses, one by 3 points to the Cowboys, and then a pretty bad loss to the Bears. And the city's about to burn down.
I mean, you got to win.
Yeah,
It's a business about winning, and the Eagles fans don't take kindly to the run they're on right now. That Cowboys loss, that stung a lot of people. And then when they came out and they came out flat on Friday at 3:30 at home,
yeah,
and a full stadium and every bar in Philly packed watching the game, and I mean they laid an egg.
yeah.
They laid an egg, and their fan base didn't appreciate it.
Not a good situation. Not a good situation to be in. Kevin, we covered NCAA football, NFL football. Anything else you have on your mind?
No, I'm gonna try to continue not eating everything in sight, and
The leftovers are probably gone at this point, right?
yeah, they were gone Friday.
Okay, gone Friday, right?
I usually eat it for breakfast. I'm usually a cold turkey and filling guy for breakfast. So on Friday, but this has been fun again, Jamie. I really look forward to us doing it again next week.
Well, good. Well, I look forward to it as well. Thanks. Always good to talk to you. And we'll pick up again next week.
We're going to have a lot of answers next week when we meet again.
We will have all of the college football answers, that's for sure. There will be a lot of me with my conspiracy theories, I'm sure, but you'll settle me down. You're the enforcer.
Not the enforcer, the voice of reason.
The voice of reason. Yep.
All right, so that's another wrap. Big thanks to Murph for being on the weekly podcast. A lot of good insights and a lot of fun too. I went to AEW Wrestling. I had mentioned that at the beginning, and boy, I have a whole podcast to talk about that coming up this weekend. The environment was unbelievable. I've been to the biggest WWE events in the world, and this was my first AEW show, and it's different. It's a different crowd, but it's also a different energy, and it's real wrestling. I mean, it's good wrestling, in addition to pretty good storylines. So I'm bought in. They got the hook in me. Again, I keep going in and out, but that hook is pretty deep inside of me. For this weekend, please enjoy a lot of football. Follow me on all the social media channels. That includes following me on X and Instagram at TellUsEllisHQ, and of course on YouTube, Tell Us Ellis Media, and the website, www.tellusellis.com, and always reach me at jamie@tellusellis.com. And if you want to be part of this show as a guest or contributor or even a writer on the website, let me know. Email me, jamie@tellusellis.com. Have a great day.